senator of the U.S., a woman is still a sort of political joke with our masculine leaders in party politics. While it is also a romantic adventure, it will ever remain an historical precedent, never to be erased.
I can remember when I was in grade school that they had us to write reports on famous figures, and Rebecca Felton was one of the people that I knew about and was assigned to research. Went back and delved into it, and I was really so impressed, inspired, and almost shocked to find out that the first U.S. woman senator came from Carville and Bartow County.
Rebecca Latimer was born in 1835 to a plantation family in DeKalb County. After graduating first in her class from Madison Female College, she married Dr. William Felton, a widower from Cartersville who was 12 years her senior.
Her life really starts when she was at the academy and she met Dr. Felton. And it was told in the family that it was really love at first sight, that they were both, new. And a year later they married, and she came to the farm in Bartow County. She came back from the war, started a school. It was called Felton Academy here in Bartow County. She taught school and charged a fee to educate particularly young men, but also young women. She thought they should have an education too, but that's how she supported her family.
In 1899, she began a column for the Atlanta Journal's statewide semi-weekly edition, which she used to speak out on everything from making farm life more appealing to young people to advice on morals and manners.
And she wrote for a newspaper column for 20 years. She was Mrs. Felton's Timely Talks, and she was a cross between Eloise and Dear Abby. People looked to her for advice.
But her husband, William, although an accomplished physician and later a member of Congress, became a member of Congress primarily because her ability to write his speeches and run his campaigns. I mean, she was not just the supportive wife, she was the operative wife, if you will.
She was her husband's campaign manager. And in an era of 1800s, women did not have a role in politics. She wrote most of his campaign speeches, would sit and listen for him to deliver the speeches to make sure, emphasize this point, insert this. And I begin to think that she paved the way for women in politics.
Like most men, there was a good woman that made them everything they were, and that was William's case, for sure.
Rebecca had a ringside view of politics. She was an able assistant supporting Dr. Felton's efforts on behalf of prohibition, education, and reform. When he retired, she continued to crusade for prohibition and women's suffrage. Although she held advanced views on many social and political issues, her opinions on race reflected the attitudes of white Southerners in that era. In fact, she frequently used racial prejudice to justify her causes.
The surprising thing was that she had a different viewpoint on slavery. She supported the fact that we had slaves, and I think she came from that point of view because, that was the norm of the South. She had 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. All of them died except for the youngest one, Howard. He was born in 1867 after the war, so times were a little bit better.
Rebecca was active in numerous civic and fraternal organizations and helped to manage the Atlanta and Chicago expositions in the 1890s. She was state chairman of the Women's Auxiliary in Chicago in 1912, and the sole woman to be called into conference when Warren Harding was made president.
No one thought she'd be called to Washington, but then a special session was called on November the 21st and 22nd. She went to Washington and she was sworn in with some reluctance on the part of some members.
1922 in some ways was a long time ago, but to actually go there and serve, I remember when we just went up to Washington here last year, to be able to go in the U.S. Capitol, go in the new museum they've constructed, and there's Rebecca Latimer's picture right there prominently displayed as one of the trendsetters and people that knocked down a lot of barriers to help us all today.
Rebecca Latimer Felton was the first woman to serve in the United States Senate. Her appointment to fill a vacancy was something of a political ploy because it came while the Senate was in recess.
I still just am so impressed that, at her age, she would have, again, traveled up to Washington, and then to strategically pull the politics off of talking those men into actually seating her. And I'm sure she did it with a lot of charm and grace, and then persuasion. She'd gone up there trying to tick everybody off. That never would have happened. But they must have really respected and liked her and liked the woman.
Well, you start with Susan B. Anthony and the Girl Scouts and move on from there. Georgia's had a deep, storied history with women of achievement who've done great things, not just for our state, but for our country.
Politically astute and active in an age when women were expected to sit quietly at home, Rebecca Felton became an author, lecturer, and leader. In 1922, soon after the ratification of the 19th Amendment, the appointment took on immense symbolic importance, and women around the country campaigned for Mrs. Felton to be officially seated. When President Harding refused to call a special session, Senator Walter F. George agreed to delay presentation of his credentials for a day so that she might make history. In one sense, it was meaningless, and Mrs. Felton herself called it a joke. But it acknowledged her years of political activism and set the stage for women to become serious participants in the political process.
She did have support here, but it was a local support, and it's quite a different arena in having Washington support. She did sit. She was determined that she was going to take that seat, so she sat outside until they finally allowed her to sit one day. And that one day has given women all over the United States an opportunity to sit.
After being sworn in, the 87-year-old woman rose to address her temporary colleagues and said, "Mr. President, the women of this country are going to come and sit here. There may not be very many the next few years, but in time, they will come."